It feels like you're doing everything right. You wake up, slice a banana over your oatmeal, maybe blend a fruit smoothie if you're feeling ambitious. You reach for the grapes instead of the cookie, choose apples over pastries, finish your meals with a few bites of melon. You've been told for years, decades even, that fruit is nature's gift, that it's clean, healing, honest. And in many ways that's true. But lately you've noticed something unsettling. Your energy dips after eating, not hours later, but sometimes within 30 minutes. Your limbs feel heavier, that mental fog, more stubborn now, harder to shake. Your blood sugar, once steady, now creeps upward, even on your best days. And the numbers confuse you. You haven't touched junk food in weeks. So why does your body feel like it's stuck in a loop it can't break? The truth is you're not failing. Your body is just speaking a new language, and nobody ever gave you the translation. Fruits, once allies, have started behaving like strangers. Not because they turned on you, but because time changed the relationship. Aging shifts how your body handles sugar, even the kind tucked inside a peach or hidden in a bowl of berries. The digestion slows. The liver hesitates. Insulin isn't quite as fast to the rescue. And those healthy snacks you trust? They don't always meet you where you are now. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're just standing in that in-between space where what once helped you might now be holding you back. Not in a loud, obvious way, but in a quiet, steady drift upward. A slow climb you feel more than you see. Until one day you realize the sweet things you loved might be sweet-talking your sugar into places it shouldn't go. You wouldn't notice it at first. The shift is subtle. It doesn't come like lightning. It comes like a tide. You feel fine after eating, maybe even light. But by mid-morning or late afternoon, there's that familiar heaviness. Not exhaustion exactly, but something deeper, a dragging in your limbs, a dull pressure behind your eyes, a kind of hunger that doesn't feel like hunger. And still, you think it was just fruit. It was healthy, so you ignore it. You push through. You write it off as age or sleep or stress. But your body keeps whispering, and eventually it starts to raise its voice. There's a pattern unfolding beneath your routine, and it's not your fault you didn't see it. Because no one ever told you that some fruits hit your bloodstream faster than table sugar, that a handful of grapes could spike you as hard as a soda, that even natural sugar when unbuffered can be relentless, especially when the body that once danced with glucose now limps a little behind it. You feel it before you see it. The rising numbers, the deeper cravings, the nagging thirst, the disrupted sleep. And you start to wonder if your body is changing or if it's catching something you missed, something no food label tells you, something no routine blood test spells out until the patterns have cemented. But it's there, behind the fruit bowls and the health magazine spreads, behind the assumption that fresh always means safe. You're not imagining it, and you're not alone. There are fruits that love you, and there are fruits that ask more than your body can now give. The key isn't to fear the sweet, but to recognize the rhythm, because once you see the pattern, you can change the dance. You've been taught to trust the word natural. It carries the weight of reassurance as if something grown on a tree couldn't possibly do harm. You walk through the produce aisle with confidence, not caution. And why wouldn't you? Nature isn't the enemy, but nature, when misunderstood, can still overwhelm a system that's already struggling to find its balance. Because the truth is, natural sugar is still sugar, and your body doesn't judge it by source, it judges it by impact. There's a fruit you eat often, soft and golden, that carries more sugar than a glazed donut. Another that seems harmless in slices but has a glycemic index that shoots your glucose up like a ski lift. You wouldn't suspect them because they aren't boxed or bagged or frozen. They don't carry preservatives, but they hit fast. They hit hard. And as your metabolism changes with age, they don't hit the same way they once did. That's the part no one warned you about, that your pancreas, once quick and resilient, now moves with a different rhythm. That insulin, your internal sugar escort, doesn't always arrive on time, and that even healthy foods, when not balanced with protein or fat, can trigger the very spikes you've tried so hard to avoid. You're not eating wrong. You're eating like the younger version of yourself, the one who could handle a fruit salad on an empty stomach without a crash by lunch. But this version of you is wiser, slower, more sensitive, not weaker, just more responsive, and your body is asking you to see the full picture. Because sometimes the danger isn't in the label, it's in the timing, the context, the chemistry. What's natural isn't always neutral, and that matters more now than it ever did before. It doesn't happen overnight. There's no warning bell, no flashing sign that says, your metabolism has changed. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the engine that once burned bright begins to burn slower. Meals that once energized you now leave you sluggish. Snacks you once trusted now feel like a burden instead of a boost, and the changes are subtle until they aren't. You notice that weight clings a little tighter, that your walks don't clear your head the way they used to, that your stomach feels fuller, longer, even after something small. What's happening isn't failure, it's transition. With age, everything shifts. Enzyme production slows, digestion takes longer, insulin becomes less efficient. The same fruit that once gave you a burst of energy now lingers in your bloodstream, waiting for the body to decide what to do with it. And when your body hesitates, your blood sugar doesn't. It rises steadily, quietly, not dramatically at first, but enough to trigger inflammation, enough to disturb your sleep, enough to make you feel like you're chasing stability that keeps slipping through your fingers. What's worse is that no one explains this shift to you. Most advice is built for younger bodies, faster systems, resilient organs. You're told to eat clean, to stick with fruit, to trust the process. But the process has changed, and so must your map. This doesn't mean your metabolism is broken. It means it's recalibrating. Slower doesn't mean worse, it just means different. And once you understand the new pace, the new needs, you can stop fighting your body and start partnering with it. Because your body is still wise, still working, still listening. And now it's asking you to adjust, not to give up, but to tune in. The shift isn't the problem. Ignoring it is. They're the ones you see everywhere. At breakfast, buffets and hospital trays, in wellness blogs and diabetic meal plans. They're sliced into salads, packed into lunchboxes, frozen into smoothies. And the world has praised them for decades. Low-fat, nutrient-rich, heart-healthy. But what no one talks about is how these 5 fruits, so familiar, so comforting, can quietly overwhelm a body that's no longer in its prime metabolic state. Not because they're bad, not because they lack benefits, but because they weren't designed to be eaten the way we eat them now. Alone, in bulk, without balance, and inside bodies that no longer burn sugar like they used to. These fruits carry high loads of natural sugar, glucose, fructose, that flood your system when eaten unaccompanied. And in a younger body, the sugar spike might be managed with ease. But in yours, the response is delayed, the sugar lingers, the insulin arrives late, the blood sugar rises higher and stays longer. You might think the culprit is something else, maybe the sandwich you had, or the cracker, or stress. But underneath it all is that mid-morning fruit bowl, or that evening handful of sweetness you told yourself was the healthy choice. And here's the trap, because they're so common, so normalized, no one questions them. But that doesn't mean they aren't causing harm. These 5 fruits, though praised for their antioxidants or fiber, are pushing your numbers in ways your doctor might miss until it's too late. Till you're diagnosed, until you're medicated, until you're wondering how it all slipped so far so fast. But now, you know there's more to the story. These 5 aren't enemies, but they're not as innocent as they seem. And before you can change your outcome, you need to know how they're changing you. You wake up clear-headed, maybe even hopeful. You eat what you've been told is clean, a bowl of fruit, a slice of whole grain toast, maybe a splash of juice to brighten the morning. At first, everything feels fine, light, fresh. But as the hours stretch on, something shifts. Your mind gets foggy, your legs feel heavier, you start yawning even after a full night's rest. And then it hits, the hunger, sudden and sharp. Not a gentle craving, but an urgent, irritable emptiness. You feel shaky, you need something, anything to bring you back up. So you reach again, another snack, another piece of fruit, something to fill the gap. But the gap was never hunger, it was the crash, and the crash only comes after the spike. What you're riding isn't appetite. It's a biochemical roller coaster, a climb in blood sugar that feels good at first, energy, clarity, even joy. And then the drop, the plummet. Your body, in trying to correct the surge, overcompensates. Insulin floods in, pushing your sugar too low, and now you're trapped in a cycle of false fixes, mistaking the fallout for fatigue, the craving for hunger, the irritability for mood swings. But beneath it all is your body trying to find its balance. It's not your willpower that's failing, it's your system screaming for steadiness. And the very foods you trusted, the fruits you thought were harmless, are driving the ride, especially those 5. Especially when eaten alone on an empty stomach without fiber or fat to slow them down. This isn't a question of discipline, it's a question of information, because once you see the ride, you can choose to step off, and when you do, your days stop swinging between highs and lows, they level out, they settle, and peace for once feels possible again. It doesn't shout at you, it whispers, a dull ache behind your eyes, a strange fullness in your belly that lingers long after you've eaten. A sudden nap that pulls you into sleep like a wave, not from tiredness, but from chemical confusion. Your body isn't punishing you. It's pleading with you, not in anger, but in exhaustion, because it's been working overtime to handle the sugar load it was never meant to bear at this stage of life. You think you're doing something good, reaching for nature instead of processed snacks. You're trying, and that effort matters, but effort without clarity can lead you into the very struggle you're trying to escape. These 5 fruits, so often consumed alone, midday, or in juice form, are easy to digest, but impossible for your aging cells to keep up with when they arrive in floods. Your pancreas is tired, your insulin sensitivity is lower. Your liver, once a silent filter, now works like a slow sponge, absorbing what it can, storing what it shouldn't. And the spikes keep coming, slowly wearing down your resilience, silently feeding inflammation, quietly draining your energy reserves like a leak you can't find. And still, you blame yourself. You think maybe you're just getting old, maybe this is how it is now, but your body isn't broken, it's overwhelmed, not by life, not by stress, but by an overload of sugar wrapped in the innocence of fruit. When the crashes come, when the confusion sets in, your body isn't accusing you. It's asking for help, a softer rhythm, a slower burn, a little mercy from the daily spikes. And once you learn how to give that, not just with medication or willpower, but with better timing, better pairings, better choices, you don't just survive the day. You start to feel like yourself again. It's the one that feels like a treat and a health food all at once. Smooth, soft, tropical, easy to blend, easy to chew, easy to love. It doesn't come with a label, so you don't see the numbers. But inside this golden sweetness is a sugar load higher than most sodas, rushing in fast, flooding your bloodstream before your system has time to prepare. The banana, the beloved, the first thing recommended to people looking for safe sweetness. But for the aging body, especially one with insulin resistance creeping in or already established, this fruit can be a quiet wrecking ball. You rarely eat just half. You toss it into smoothies, oatmeal, pancakes, or grab it alone as a snack between meals. But that soft texture means there's nothing to slow down the sugar. The fiber is minimal. The glycemic impact is steep. And even if you feel full at first, the crash that follows can leave you shaky and irritable within an hour. And here's the trap, it doesn't feel indulgent. You feel responsible eating it, like you're doing something right. And that makes it hard to question, hard to connect the dots when your numbers rise or your mood crashes or your nap hits you like a wave at noon. It's not that bananas are evil, it's that your body now needs sugar to arrive with a buffer, with support, with something to ground it. And the banana, eaten alone or first thing in the morning, has none of that. It's sweet, yes, but too fast, too easy, too much. This fruit isn't the villain, but it's also not your ally when your blood sugar is on the edge. And learning to see that clearly is the first step toward reclaiming calm in your body again. It sits in nearly every kitchen. You've packed it in lunches, sliced it into salads, bit into it like a promise. Crisp, clean, dependable. Doctors used to call it the perfect diet food, low calorie, portable, crunchy, safe. But that safety was based on an old metabolism, a younger body, a different time. The apple, bright, iconic, and quietly dangerous when eaten the wrong way in the wrong phase of life. It doesn't taste overly sweet, and that's part of the illusion. It feels innocent, but depending on the variety, a single apple can contain more than 20 grams of sugar. And the way that sugar behaves in your body now is not the same as it did at 40 or even 55. You eat it raw, alone, between meals, maybe as a late-night snack, maybe first thing in the morning, and you feel the spike before you see it, a burst of energy, then a slide, a sharper hunger not satisfied by meals, a little swelling in your fingers, a little pressure behind the eyes. It's not dramatic, so you dismiss it, but the pattern repeats, quietly, persistently. You were never told that apples, especially the sweeter ones like Fuji or Gala, could act like a sugar packet on an empty stomach. That their fiber, while helpful, isn't enough when insulin sensitivity is low and your system isn't primed with protein or fat. You don't have to fear apples, but you do have to rethink them. Maybe it's half, not whole. Maybe it's eaten after a meal, not before. Maybe it's paired with almonds or cheese instead of standing alone. This isn't about cutting everything out. It's about cutting through the assumptions, because even the classics can turn on you if you're not watching the clock, the pairing, and the pace of your own body's needs. It's the snack you reach for when you're trying to be careful. It's light, it's crisp, it barely feels like anything at all. You've read that it's low in calories, so it must be safe. Safe for weight, safe for sugar, safe for your age. But what it doesn't carry in calories, it often delivers in sugar. And for a body that now measures health in glucose, not just in pounds, that matters more than you've been told. The watermelon. Sweet, refreshing, and one of the most deceptive fruits when it comes to blood sugar. It's mostly water, yes, but what sugar it does contain rushes in fast, with almost no fiber to slow it down. You might eat a large wedge on a hot day or several chunks straight from the fridge. It tastes so light, you don't stop to think about how much you're actually consuming. But your blood sugar notices. In fact, it responds almost instantly because watermelon has one of the highest glycemic indices of any fruit. That means your body digests it quickly, too quickly, delivering a burst of sugar into your bloodstream that hits like a sprint and crashes just as hard. And without fats or proteins to anchor it, the spike can be sharp, the fallout just as steep. You don't need to quit watermelon forever, but it can't be your go-to snack anymore. Not by itself, not in large portions, not late at night when your insulin is already sluggish and your liver's reserves are running low. Low calorie doesn't mean low impact. And the things that feel light can sometimes weigh the heaviest on your system. You're not being punished. You're being shown the truth. And the truth is, how your body processes food now is different. It deserves foods that honor that change. You drink it thinking it's cleaner, easier, a better way to get your fruit without all the chewing, without the hassle. A smoothie in the morning, a glass of juice with lunch. It feels like a step up from soda, and in some ways it is. But your bloodstream doesn't measure intentions, it measures absorption. And when you drink your fruit, you remove the very thing that slows sugar down, the fiber. That's the trap. Because in a single cup of orange juice, you might be getting the sugar equivalent of 4 whole oranges, all without the fiber, without the bulk, without the fullness. It slides in smooth, fast, unchecked. You don't feel the hit until your hands tremble or your hunger spikes or your eyes glaze over at 11 a.m. and you're wondering why. Even smoothies, marketed as healthy meal replacements, can backfire. Bananas, mango, pineapple, berries, all blended into one silky drink. But blending breaks the cell walls of the fruit, releasing sugars into your system faster than your body can manage. You're not chewing. You're not digesting gradually. You're delivering a sweet flood, often on an empty stomach. And the worst part? You're still hungry, because liquid fruit rarely satisfies. It stimulates without grounding. It lifts without lasting. So you snack again, eat again, and the roller coaster continues. Your body isn't rejecting nourishment. It's rejecting overload. It needs time to process. It needs meals that arrive like a gentle stream, not a tidal wave. And when you drink your fruit, you bypass the body's built-in safeguards. You're not failing by sipping what feels healthy. But now you know what's easy to swallow may be harder to stabilize, and a liquid can carry a spike just as sharp as any dessert, hidden in the sweetness of your best intentions. It feels like one of the gentlest fruits on the list, software muted, comforting in its simplicity. It doesn't punch you with sweetness the way others do. It feels slow, subtle, almost medicinal. You might bake it, mash it, slice it into porridge, or eat it raw with a spoon. It's so mild you forget it's even sugar, but your liver remembers, and your blood sugar doesn't have to spike to suffer the consequences. The pear, innocent, unthreatening. And yet, behind that delicate skin lies a quiet overload of fructose, a type of sugar that doesn't always register as a spike on your glucose monitor, but still stirs inflammation beneath the surface. Fructose doesn't get processed the same way as glucose. It heads straight to the liver, and if your liver is already burdened by age, by years of hidden spikes, by creeping resistance, it stores that sugar as fat, slowly, steadily, without raising alarms. That's what makes this fruit so deceptive. You don't feel the crash, but your organs do. You don't see the numbers change drastically, but your waistline thickens, your energy wanes, your fasting glucose creeps upward month by month, and still you think it's just a pear. But one a day eaten alone or paired with other high fructose fruits begins to strain a system that now needs more support than surprise. The goal isn't fear, it's awareness. Because not all sugar registers the same way. Some sugars hide, working their damage slowly, softly, like a whisper that becomes a wound. The pear won't destroy you, but it doesn't deserve blind trust either. Not at this stage, not without balance, not without intention. You don't need to give it up forever, but you do need to give your liver a chance to rest, and that begins by knowing where your fructose really comes from. You've done everything they said. You followed the guidelines, listened to the advice, trusted the system, you ate the fruits, you cut the fat, you watched your portions, and still you found yourself in the waiting room, hearing numbers you never expected. A 1C creeping up, glucose levels out of range, the silent look on your doctor's face as they mention lifestyle adjustments, but no one ever pointed to the fruit. And it's not because they're hiding something malicious, it's because the system is slow to shift. Nutritional advice was built decades ago, and most of it was tailored for younger bodies, for metabolisms that bounce back, for organs not yet touched by time. The studies weren't built on 65-year-old pancreases. The meal plans weren't tested on livers that had seen 5 decades of sugar, stress, and survival. Your doctor means well, but they're rushed. 10 minutes to check your chart, ask a few questions, and move on. They may mention diet, maybe even hand you a generic food list, but they won't sit with you long enough to explain how a ripe banana at 7 a.m. is sabotaging your entire day. They might not even know. Even the diabetic-friendly food pyramid still praise fruit as a guilt-free category. And the internet? One article tells you to eat more berries. The next warns you about fructose overload. You're left to sort the truth from the noise, and it's exhausting. So you blame yourself, you think you failed, but the failure was in the silence, in the outdated charts, in the missing conversations. You weren't warned because the system hasn't caught up to the aging body. But now you're catching up for it. Now you see what they missed, and that clarity, however delayed, is the beginning of taking your health back on your terms. You don't need to give it up. You don't need to live in fear of a peach or feel guilt when slicing into an apple. Fruit isn't the villain. The way we use it is. And that means you don't have to walk away from sweetness. You just have to walk toward wisdom. A slower, more intentional way of eating. One that matches the body you have now, not the one you had 20 years ago. It begins with unlearning what you were taught. That fruit is always good. That it's a free food. That you can snack on it anytime as much as you want. But your body now doesn't process sugar like it used to, especially not the kind that comes in quickly, without companions to slow it down. So now, fruit needs a partner, not just in flavor, but in chemistry. Protein, fiber, and healthy fat, these are your buffers. They're the brakes on the blood sugar roller coaster. When you eat fruit with a handful of nuts or after a meal rich in protein, the sugar releases slowly. Your body doesn't panic. Insulin doesn't surge. Energy stays even. That's the difference between fruit being medicine or a trigger. And then there's portion, because a banana is not one portion, it's often two. Grapes shouldn't be a bowl, they should be a handful. Watermelon shouldn't fill your plate, it should complement what's already there. The new rule is this: fruit should never be the main act. It should be a side note, a support, a subtle sweetness in a meal that's already grounded. And timing is everything. Eat fruit after movement, not before a nap. Eat it as a dessert, not as the first thing that hits your stomach, because an empty belly and a flood of sugar don't mix well in a body that's already working harder to maintain balance. You need to give your body the best chance to respond, not react. Rotating helps too. You don't need to rely on the same fruits every day. Mix in low-sugar options like berries, use avocado, olives, and tomatoes to round out your meals. They're fruits too, but without the sugar burden. You can still enjoy variety without inviting volatility. And most of all, listen. Your body will tell you when it's too much. That mid-afternoon crash, that fog after a healthy breakfast, that strange hunger an hour after snacking, those aren't random. They're signals, not of weakness, but of wisdom waiting to be heard. So no, this isn't about restriction. It's about rhythm, learning how to keep your body in a steady beat. You can still enjoy fruit, but you'll do it with awareness, with timing, with love. You're not cutting it out, you're inviting it in the right way. Because when fruit stops being a sugar bomb and starts being a balanced companion, it returns to what it was always meant to be, a gift, not a trigger, and your body can finally stop fighting and start feeling safe again. You don't need to flip your world upside down. You don't need to throw away every apple, every banana, every box of berries sitting in your fridge. What you need isn't a diet, it's a shift, a gentle, powerful shift that begins with understanding. Because when you stop seeing food as right or wrong and start seeing it as information, as influence, as chemistry unfolding inside you, that's when real change begins. You've lived through decades of food rules: low-fat this, sugar-free that, eat more fruit, eat less fat, snack often, skip meals. The noise has been endless. But your body has always been quiet. It hasn't judged or yelled. It's whispered. Through fatigue, through swelling, through blood sugar charts that never quite made sense. It was never trying to punish you. It was trying to tell you, please, slow down, notice me. And now you are. Now you know that 5 fruits, beloved, praised, and recommended, have been causing more harm than good in your life. Not because they're evil, but because they weren't meant for the metabolism you have today. And the beauty is, you didn't need to cut them out completely. You just needed to meet them with more awareness. Pair them, portion them, time them. Give your body the support it's been quietly begging for. This shift isn't dramatic, it's gentle. It shows up in the way your energy levels stay stable after breakfast, in the way your clothes fit better even though you're eating more, in the way your cravings no longer hold you hostage at 3 p.m. or 9 at night. It's peace, not perfection, that begins to fill your days. You find yourself breathing easier, sleeping deeper, walking lighter. Your blood sugar readings don't bounce like they used to. Your mood feels softer. The roller coaster stops demanding so much of your strength, all because you listened, all because you learned that the answers were never about restriction, but rhythm. You've stopped following rules made for bodies that aren't yours. You've stopped punishing yourself for a biology that simply needed more care. And now you've stepped into a partnership with your body, a daily conversation built on trust. The banana, maybe you eat half now with protein. The juice, swapped for water with lemon. The fruit bowl, a little smaller, a little later, after you've moved your body and grounded your plate with healthy fats. These aren't sacrifices. They're acts of self-respect. You're not dieting, you're listening, and that changes everything. Because when the body finally feels heard, it starts to heal. And the sugar storms that once ruled your mornings and crashed your nights, they quiet down. You quiet down. Life becomes livable again. This is your shift, your story, not one of control, but of care. And with every small, kind choice, you return to a truth you always deserved, that health isn't found in extremes, it's found in awareness. And now, awareness lives in you.